Hey guys, so today I want to share my recipe for Napoleon, or in Russian Napoleon. It's one of the favorite things to bake before New Year's. So let's get started. So for this recipe you will need 4 cups of flour plus half a cup extra for later on. Then you will need 1 teaspoon of salt and 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar, and then 2 eggs and 1.5 of cup of water. So altogether you should get a little bit over 1.5 of liquid. So we start off by putting the eggs in this measuring cup, and then I will add my vinegar to it. And like I said, it's just 1.5 tablespoons of white vinegar. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. And now I'm just going to whisk it together, and then I'm going to add my water to it. I'm just going to add water to it, about 1.5 cups of water. So what you want to end up having is just a little bit over 1.5, and that's what I'm looking at, making sure that my measurements are correct. And now what you want to do is grind your butter with flour. So my butter is chilled from the refrigerator, and this is what I'm doing to make sure that my butter doesn't melt in my hands. I'm using a glove, and that helps. And after I grind all of my butter, I'm going to add my liquid, and I'm just going to form my dough. I'm not really going to knit it, I'm just only going to press it together. And this is what you should end up with, and you can tell there's pieces of butter in there. And now I'm going to cut it into 8 pieces. I'm just doing it 4s, and then every little piece into 2s, and that way I have 8 equal parts of dough. And now I'm forming them into little balls, and then I'm gonna squeeze them a little bit so that way they can refrigerate better. And this is a dough that can be done ahead of time. It can really be in the freezer for at least like a month, I believe. And it also refrigerates really well too. So if you're planning to make it ahead of time, go ahead and do that. You have plenty of time to bake the cake later. But since I'm baking my cake today, I am saran wrapping it, and I am putting it in a refrigerator for at least 4 hours. And now while the dough is in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours, we're going to make the cream. What you need is 1 liter of milk and 1 1/4 cup of sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And you want to mix that over a medium heat in a saute pan. And now what I'm going to do is add my 4 eggs into my measuring cup, and then I am going to add my 1 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm going to use a mixer to mix it really well. I don't need to have it all fluffed up or anything. It just needs to be mixed really well so that there isn't any pieces. And then once that is done, I am going to add my hot milk to it a little bit at a time. And you want to be mixing while you're pouring the milk in so that your eggs don't become like scrambled eggs. And then after that, I will return all of my mixture back into my saute pan and put it back on the stove to make sure that it cooks, and about 10 minutes, I would say, on low medium heat. You want to be mixing it constantly so that it does not burn. This is how it should look after about 10 minutes on the stove, and then you want to pour it into a different bowl and add a tablespoon of butter to it. And before you leave it to cool completely, you want to cover it with saran wrap and let it cool. And while that is cooling, we're going to prepare our dough. Make sure to put flour, and I'm rolling it out right on top of a parchment paper, and that's just the easiest way to do it because that's what I'm going to bake it on, so that way I don't have to move it again. This way also you want to make sure that's the size and the shape you want to do is that's how you want to roll it out. And once you're done rolling it, make sure to lift it up, that way it doesn't stick to your parchment paper. And then after that you want to make holes in with a fork so that it doesn't fluff up. I did with one of mine, but that was okay because I used it for I crunched it up for the sides. Anyways, and then this is easiest way to move it. This is what I did. I just slide it over, and I'm going to bake it at preheated oven at 420 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes. And this is how they are going to look like after you're done baking them. And one of them is fluffed up. Like I said, I forgot to make holes in them with my fork. So then I am going to start assembling the cake. So for this cream you will need 3 sticks of butter that are room temperature, and then I'm going to mix a tablespoon at a time of cream that we did earlier that is cooled. I am going to make sure to mix in my butter first, and then we'll be starting adding a tablespoon at a time. This is how your cream should look like, and now we're going to start assembling the cake. You want to choose a platter that you want to use, and I'm going to use parchment paper to put around it, and then I'm going to cut my layers that I have made, and to make sure that they are all the same size. And then what I want to do is to make sure to flip them the other way, and that way they're more flatter, and start assembling my cake that way. And for each layer you'll probably need about 2 tablespoons or so of cream. If you need more, you can always add more because you do have plenty to use than just 2 tablespoons if you need to. And so for the sides of my cakes, I'm going to break up one of my layers that I had, and I'm just making it into little pieces, and then I am going to add 2 tablespoons or so of baking powder and mix that up. And for the top of the cake, I'm going to use nuts, and I'm going to use 1 can of leche. I'm using the caramel leche, and I'm just going to put it into a bag and warm it up in the microwave. That way it's easier to work with. I did it for about 10 seconds or so, and that way it's just easier to pour it out. So for the sides of my cakes, I'm using the crumbles with the powdered sugar, and I'm using that parchment paper to have it stick to my sides. That's just easier to do. That's what I figured out than just using my hand. And then on top, I am just going to put my nuts on it. Said earlier, you can decorate with whatever you guys want. This is just the classic. I hope this helped you guys and motivate you guys to bake something new. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will definitely see you in the New Year's. Bye.